I'm Pat Liddy and I run Pat Liddy's Walking Tours of Dublin. And today, thanks to the Patrick's Day Festival Committee, I'm taking you on a walk around old medieval Dublin, more or less in the footsteps of St. Patrick. And we're going to find out who was St. Patrick. His legacy is all around us here. This is the heart of the old medieval city. And from the 6th century onwards, this place was literally littered with churches. Today, even in the city, there are 300 churches, all part of the legacy of this great man we call St. Patrick. We're here on the side of the high medieval walls of Christ Church Cathedral. This whole area was exactly the plumb centre of Viking Dublin. And about 40 years ago, they carried out great archaeological excavations here, and they found many interesting artefacts. And some of those artefacts have been sculptured into these pavement representations. And what we have here are a number of items like a decorated bone, a broken Viking sword. But what I really want to point out is something that looks like it might belong to a horse. It's a circular or a half-circular piece of iron with 2 straps at each end. Now, what do you think that is? Well, it's not for a horse. It's for human beings. It's for slaves. It's what's called a slave collar. And the Vikings had a big trade in slavery going from Dublin to their colonies or to their homelands. In any case, it reminds us that St. Patrick, who was born in Britain, lived there till he was about 16, until he was captured by Irish pirates. He became a slave and was sent to Northern Ireland to work a farm there. So after 6 years, he managed to escape. He took a ship to France and ultimately became a priest. And eventually he heard that he was being called back to the land he escaped from, Ireland. And we'll continue that story at our next stop. So did St. Patrick introduce Christianity into Ireland? Well, there was another famous missionary before him called Palladius, but he died about a year after he arrived. St. Patrick was promoted a bishop and was sent here instead of Palladius. And he followed one of the old great military highways built by the Celts. And the route actually crossed the River Liffey at this point, across a ford. And this is the way Patrick came. He came along the Slia Coolan, as it was called. And he would have entered the south side of Dublin over the ford, and we're going to follow literally in his footsteps. Now, we've taken a little diversion from the route St. Patrick would have moved along in order to visit City Hall. Up above me here is a picture entitled St. Patrick Baptizing the King of Dublin. Well, there was no King of Dublin, but he was a chieftain. And of course, St. Patrick's style was always to baptize the chieftain first, and then the people followed. Very simple. So there's a garland of shamrocks around the coat of arms of Dublin here. Why is the shamrock such a symbol of Ireland? Well, it always was a treasured plant in Ireland. It symbolised the coming of spring. And it's said that St. Patrick used this 3-leaf clover that we nowadays call the shamrock to explain the 3 persons in the Trinity of God. However, that may not be true. That may be a myth, because we only started putting that story out really 1,000 years after Patrick died. But the shamrock and the colour of the shamrock green was often worn by revolutionaries on their lapels or as a cockade in their hats to identify them as rebels. And it came to symbolise their struggle for Irish independence. I've taken you now to the lower yard of Dublin Castle and to the eastern door of the Chapel Royal. And who have we here? A bust of St. Patrick. Now, St. Patrick was actually born in Britain. His grandfather, Potitus, was actually a Roman Catholic priest. And his own father, Calpurnius, was a deacon in the Catholic Church. So we had married priests in those days. And if we hadn't married priests, we'd have no St. Patrick. Another little myth is that Patrick was not his real name. It was actually, in Latin, Magnus Sucatus. And when he became a bishop, he was given an honorific title by the Pope of the day, Pope Celestine, Patricius, meaning the noble one. And that stuck more than his original name. So that's why we call him Patrick today. Now, I've brought you to the gardens of Dublin Castle. Very, very beautiful. It's like a little oasis in the centre of Dublin. And right here in front of me is the site of the old ancient lake called the Dove Linn or the Black Pool. And Dove Linn, of course, gave its name to the city of Dublin. But what I want you to look at here are the representations of serpents. It's taken from Celtic jewellery, and they're all interwoven on the green circular grass plot here. And they remind us of the story of St. Patrick banishing snakes from Ireland. Did he banish snakes? No, I'm afraid it's a mistranslation. What he did banish were serpents. And the serpents referred to here were the Druids in the ancient Irish pagan culture. They were the high priests. They had power over men's lives, and people hated them. So effectively, by introducing Christianity, Patrick banished serpents from Ireland. Here we have finally reached the site where St. Patrick is believed to have baptised the people of the Dublin area. We know there was a well here which became a holy well for hundreds and hundreds of years. And inside the great cathedral of St. Patrick, which is just beside us, they have the slab, the granite slab that used to cover this well. And that slab and its carvings are reckoned to be well over 1,000 years old. St. Patrick himself died around, well, we think 461 AD, a man in his 70s, perhaps in his 80s. He is buried in Downpatrick, where he founded his first church in Northern Ireland. I suppose the main legacy of St. Patrick is the 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day. It's celebrated all over the world. The whole world goes green on that day. Prominent and historic buildings, even in countries that don't have any Christian tradition, their buildings are all floodlit green on the day. A marvellous achievement for a man, if you will, that lived and walked the route we went on today 1,500 years ago. If you want to know more about St. Patrick or the St. Patrick's Festival, just log on to the St. Patrick's Festival website. And I'd like to thank the festival team for making this walk today possible.